This is Trial Transcripts Exposed by Crime in Court with Heather. Raw courtroom reads with my commentary. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Crime in Court with Heather. This is Trial Transcripts Exposed. We are reading through the Menendez Brothers' second trial in the homicides of their parents, Kitty and Jose, and we are on the defense's case, part 51. This is December 18th, 1995. We're going to continue right where we left off, which was we read the first half of the day. We're going to read the second half of the day. So the court says, okay, we'll resume with the cross-examination. All right, so the jury enters the courtroom and the following proceedings were held. Oh, it helps if I shrink myself. Here we go. The court says that the jury is back and we will continue with the cross-examination of the defendant, Erik Menendez. Mr. Khan says, thank you. Mr. Menendez, I believe that when we broke for lunch, we were discussing the strips of negatives that are contained in an exhibit marked 356 by your attorneys, and you indicated that in one strip of negatives, for which we now have photographs on the board, those negatives are numbered 5 through 8. Is that correct? They are. And there is another strip of negatives that are a part of the exhibit which are numbered 13 through 16. Is that correct? Right. And there is another strip of negatives that are numbered 17 through 20. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, and you have no personal knowledge as to where the missing strips would be. That is, strips 1 through 4 or strips 9 through 12, do you? Mr. Levin says objection calls for speculation if they're missing. The court says sustained. Mr. Khan says, now referring to this last strip, 17 through 20, I'd like you to take a look at those images, and is this photograph, which I am now holding, and I will mark this 374. The court says 372. 372. Court says, have you marked others up there? We marked 2 this morning. All right, I didn't catch them. I didn't hear you say them. Was 372 something before? Mr. Khan says, yes, 372 was previously 229. Court says, okay, and what is 373? Is there a 373 up there? Mr. Khan says, no, I believe I just marked 371 and 372. The court says, okay. So now you're asking for 373? Thank you, says Mr. Khan. And what was 373? Mr. Khan says, okay, 373 was previously 230. Okay. Showing you, Mr. Khan to the witness says, okay, showing you 373, is this can you tell if that is the first photograph in that strip of negatives, which I am now showing you? It is. Okay, and I will mark it at this time 374, an exhibit that was previously marked as 231. Showing you 374, is this the next photograph in that strip of negatives? Yes, it is. And I will mark the next photograph, which is 232. Is that the next photograph in that strip of negatives? Yes. The court says, you're marking that 375? Mr. Khan says, this one has been marked already, Your Honor, as 353A in this proceeding. The court says 353A? Yes, and I will mark as 375 a photograph that has previously been marked as 233 in the last trial. Showing you 233, does this appear to be the last photograph of that strip? Yes, yes. Okay, now, once again, as to these photographs, which are we looking at on the board? Do you have any personal recollection of who it was that took the first photograph on the far left, the one depicting a birthday party? Not to my memory. Okay, and the next photograph in that strip appears to be a photograph of a plate in a dishwasher. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, do you have any knowledge of who took that photograph? No, I don't. Do you recall if there were any children holding a camera at the party? It's my parents' camera. I don't have no idea. Have you ever seen your father photograph plates in dishwashers before? I would have no idea why the picture was taken or what the situation was. And it's your testimony that this person here is the bathrobe. This person here in the bathrobe is you, correct? That's me. And the last photograph in this particular strip of is a photograph of a dog. Is that correct? Yes. And you don't know who took that photograph either. Is that correct? Right. In fact, you can't tell us who took the photograph of you standing there without your clothes on, can you? I don't have any memory of my brother or my mother ever taking a photograph of myself when I was told to hold open my robe or of myself naked at all. Do you remember that particular day that that photograph of you was taken? No, I don't. Was it the same day of your 6th birthday party? It was. Well, it appears to be. Do you remember if there were any children holding onto a camera or playing with a camera on that day? I don't recall that. Did your father take many photographs of the family dog? Many photographs of the family pets were taken. Now, do you know where your father had these photographs that you allege he took of you, where he stored these photographs? In his room. And how do you know that? I've seen in my childhood piles and piles and piles of photographs, all of them in my mother's and father's rooms. You saw photographs of you in the nude, piles and piles of them? No, no, I don't mean photographs of me in the nude. Just the photographs were stored in my parents' room. Well, the photographs I'm asking you about are the alleged nude photographs that he took of you. Do you know where he stored those? No. Did your father have a photo lab in your home so he could develop these photographs? No. Your father was a man who was very concerned about his image, is that correct? Yes. Do you know where he took the family photographs to have them developed? I would only be speculating. Do you know where he took these alleged nude photographs of children to be developed? Not personally, no. Do you think at the time that your father, a man who was so concerned about his image, might have a little bit of a problem taking photographs of nude children to be developed at a local photo developing shop? I wouldn't imagine that. Objection calls for speculation. The court says sustained, the answer stricken. Mr. Khan says, after you grew up and became 18 years old, did you finally tell your father, I would like to have those photographs back? It's not something I would have said to my father. Did you ever see a single photograph that your father took of you while in the nude? No. Were you aware of any secret hiding places where your father would store things? I I assumed he stored them in his bedroom. Did he have some? I don't have any personal knowledge of secret hiding places. Did he have any secret hiding places in his bedroom? I don't know. I have one more photograph to mark, Your Honor. This was a photograph referred to previously, although I don't think it was marked. The witness testified regarding the photograph, which I will now mark as 376. It was previously marked as 222. And just to clarify, this photograph, which I am showing you as 376, this is a photograph from the first strip of photographs, which you identified your father as being in the photo. Is that correct? Yes. Now, before you shot and killed your father, I take it you didn't give him any advance notice that you were going to be doing this. Is that correct? Yes. And so later, when you are looking around your home, did you stumble across all of the alleged naked photographs that he would take of you? No, I didn't. I didn't go through all the boxes. I wasn't even sure if he still had them. You didn't go through all of the boxes in your room. Not everyone. Well, didn't you tell us that you were concerned that there might be some more sensitive matters that you didn't want people to find out about in the safe? Yes. And didn't you tell us that there might be some sensitive matters that you didn't want people to find out about in the safety deposit box at the bank? Yes. And that's the reason why you didn't want your Uncle Carlos or your Uncle Brian present at the time that you looked into the safe and looked into the safety box. Right. But are you telling us that there were boxes and boxes of things at your home that you never bothered to look into those boxes? There were 200 to 400 boxes at my house, and there was no time to go through all of the boxes. I went through many of the cursory search that I did the day before the relatives arrived, but there were so many boxes that it would be impossible. There were boxes of stuff that had been packed 12 years before in our first move from Muncie to Pennington. It just wasn't possible. When you said there was no time, where were you going, Mr. Menendez? It's not that there was no time. The relatives were coming in. There was no time. I wasn't going to sit and go through 400 boxes. I just wasn't in the frame of mind to be that thorough in my search. So you weren't that concerned about keeping private the family secrets that you'd go to the trouble of going through all those boxes. Is that correct? I was concerned about it, but I just wasn't able to go through 400 boxes. Well, did you tell your brother Lyle that this was the family secret that you didn't want the public to find out about? He should take half the boxes and you should take half the boxes and go through it before people find out of all the damaging nude photographs of you and your brother. My brother went around and collected, I know my mom's, the diaries, her letters about taking her own life, any type of sensitive information like that we could find lying around in the bedroom. But to go through the garages, the two different garages and all the boxes, we were going to do it. But I mean, it just wasn't possible to do in 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours. Even if we had 2 days, it would have been difficult. Well, how long after you shot your parents to death did you remain, sorry, in California? Well, the relatives flew in on Monday morning, Monday night, and Tuesday, and I stayed there for Wednesday, Thursday, and the memorial service was on Friday, and I left on Saturday to go to the memorial service back east, the funeral. And after that, did you come back to California? Yes. And then how long did you remain in California? I stayed in California for a week, maybe 10 days. And then where did you go? Back to New Jersey. Well, during the week that you came back, did you go through the boxes to make sure that there were no more embarrassing diaries or self-unaliving letters or photographs in the boxes at your home? I went through many of the boxes. It was a slow process of going through all of the belongings. It was also a painful process, and I was doing it in piecemeal. Did you go through all of the boxes? No. Why not? My grandmother went through probably the majority of them. And did you tell her to keep an eye out for nude photographs of you and your brother? I didn't need to tell my grandmother that. Well, why did you not need to tell your grandmother that? My grandmother was just as concerned as I was about any secrets that my father had had, and nothing was going beyond her. She was there. I didn't need to tell my grandmother. So, are we saying that your grandmother knew that your father has nude photographs of you and your brother? I'm not saying that she knew or didn't know. I'm saying that anything might be embarrassing to my father would have been confiscated immediately by my grandmother. So she wouldn't allow him to be embarrassed, I guess, if there was embarrassing, incriminating stuff in there. So you felt any box that you or your brother did not go through would be gone through by your grandmother. Is that correct? That's what was understood. And so, to your knowledge, no boxes of nude photographs were ever recovered. Is that correct? I told my attorneys that they were photographs like this. They went through many of the boxes, if not all the boxes that were still around, and found these. Mr. Khan says, I'm going to make an objection as non responsive. Mr. Levin says, objection, Your Honor, it's quite responsive. The court says, let's have the question read back. They do. The court says, overruled. Oh, excuse me. Mr. Khan says, and all of these naked photographs that your father would take of you from time to time, what became of them, Mr. Menendez? I don't know. So all we have is one photograph of you in the nude and one photograph of a person who you think might be your brother. Is that correct? Yes. And you can't tell us for sure by looking at those photographs who took them. Is that correct? Those particular photographs I have not seen before. And you can't tell by looking at the photographs and the photographs immediately adjacent to the photographs whether they were taken by an adult or by a child playing with a camera. Can you? No child playing with a camera asked me to hold open my robe to take a picture of me. I think I would remember that. If I don't, then I can't say. But I do not remember that. I know my father did these things. All right. Tired. All right. The only other witness to the person taking the photographs is your father, who was killed. Is that correct? I'm sure my brother saw them. I know he took pictures of my brother and my mother. Now you told us here that you saw your father take photos of your brother while your brother was naked. Is that correct? Yes. And didn't you previously testify in the first trial that you have had no idea if your father took photographs of Lyle while he was naked? I don't remember testifying to that. Okay, well, let me ask you. Do you remember being asked a question? Can I have a page and line number? Says Mr. Levin. And she finishes her sentence says, remember being asked a question. Oh, wait, that's all one. Okay, never mind. Moving on. Sorry. I don't even know how to explain what I thought it was. Okay. Mr. Khan says, yes, page. Mr. Levin says, volume. Mr. Khan says, 43107, volume 258B, line 18. Sorry. I'm sorry. Line here through page 16400. Mr. Levin says, wait, I'm sorry. 16400, line 22. What volume? 97. Mr. Khan says 97, line 24 through 26. Wait, what counsel or what line, counsel? Says Mr. Levin. Mr. Khan says line 24 through 26. Objection, says Levin. Mr. Khan says, do you remember being asked the following question and giving the following answer at the first trial? Question. And do you know whether he took photographs of your brother naked? Answer. I have no idea. Answer. If I could see it, I didn't read my transcripts from the first trial. Apparently, I did. Yes. Okay. So, can you tell us why, Mr. Menendez, in the first trial, when you were asked if your father took photographs of your brother in the while he was naked, you said he had no idea, and in this trial, you said that you saw your father take photographs of your brother nude. I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking 2 years ago. I know he took pictures of Lyle naked. So you weren't trying to lay a foundation to get that photograph of your brother into evidence, were you, Mr. Menendez? A photograph of my brother and I wouldn't imagine you would keep out, and it wouldn't come into this trial. I don't need to lay a foundation. I don't know what the rules are, but I have a memory of it. I I said I have no idea. I don't know why. Did you have memory of it when you testified last time under oath in front of a jury? Apparently not. Do you think your memory is better today than it was back then? I don't know if it's better today. I don't think it's better today, but when I deal with the memories of my childhood, I remember different things and I remember things slightly different when I'm in therapy and we go over things and again and again. I know that he took pictures of myself. I remembered him having the camera and going into the bedroom and into the bathroom and taking pictures. I remember him using the camera. How many times do you think you remember that your father took photographs of your brother in the nude? When we were in Muncie, when I was 6, and when I don't know. On how many separate occasions did you see your father take photographs of your brother? I couldn't say. Was it just once or more than once? I remember him going into the bedroom and I remembered hearing the camera go off because it had a flash bulb. And I remember him doing it in the bathroom as well. So at least twice. Huh? Are you saying the therapy improved your memory? I think therapy does improve my memory, but I am not saying that therapy improved my memory on this issue. I can't tell you why I said what I can't tell you why I said that. I have no idea. Did therapy improve your memory on any of the other issues concerning your testimony in this first trial? I think the therapy enlightens me more to why things happened in my life so that I can cope with them. What happened in my life has never changed. That's a good way of explaining therapy. It's supposed to help you get to cope with things. It doesn't change the things, it just helps you cope with it. Do you remember any other things now that you didn't remember at the time of the first trial? Yes. Objection, that's vague and compound. Overruled, he answered the question. Mr. Khan says, well, what is it that you remember now that you didn't remember at the first trial? There are many incidents with my father when he came into my room that still come to me and that I still remember that I didn't remember 2 years ago or 3 years ago or 6 years ago. And they continue to happen. So he's still his repressed memories are still coming back to him about incidents that occurred with his father coming in the bedroom at night. Um, And they continue to happen, and I am told that they may happen for the rest of my life. Sometimes I think that it's just a dream or it's just a fantasy that I am remembering, but the pain is real, and so I knew things come to me. So the allegations against your parents are increasing as time goes on because you remember more things. Is that correct? No. Some things I forget that I had remembered. I don't know if memory is static. I think that it evolves. When it comes to what you did to your parents on August the 20th of 1998, it was 1989. They said the wrong year. 1989. Did your memory concerning that improve any since the last trial? I don't know what you mean by that. Well, I will be questioning you concerning your activities on August the 20th of 1989, but just let me ask you now, is your recollection of what you did to your parents on August the 20th of 1989 better as far as remembering the details than it was the last time you testified? Objection, it's argumentative, Your Honor. he may not have been asked those questions. Overruled. He says, I answered the questions at the last trial to the best that I could. I didn't testify to everything that happened in my life. I didn't testify to every thought that happened that last week. Answered the questions as truthfully and as candidly as I can when I'm on the stand as to what I remember. Mr. Khan says, let me repeat my question, Mr. Menendez. My question to you was, has your recollection concerning the details of what you did to your parents on August the 20th of 1989 increased any since the time of your last trial? It would be difficult to imagine it increasing. Have you been told by your therapist that as your allegations against your parents may grow and grow as time goes on, that perhaps your recollection of what you did to your parents on August the 20th might also become clearer in your mind? Objection, Your Honor, to the form of the question using the word allegation, and the remainder of it is vague. Court says it's argumentative as phrased. Now, you said that your mother would ask you to write down on a list various things that she wanted you to tell your father. Is that correct? Yes. And we have marked as 355 an exhibit in which there is a list of things that you had to write down to tell your father. Is that correct? Right. And did you do all of those things on the list? I don't specifically recall if I did or didn't. Well, it says, for example, at home, Erik would not eat his spinach. Do you remember whether or not you truly ate your spinach, Mr. Menendez? The spinach wasn't one of my favorite foods. I probably did not. What does the fact that you wrote on a piece of paper the fact that you didn't eat your spinach have to do with why you shot your mother to death on August the 20th of 1989? Objection, argumentative. Well, it assumes facts, not an evidence. Rephrase the question. Mr. Khan says, did you shoot your mother to death because she became angry that you didn't eat your spinach? Really? That's the question? Did you shoot your mom because you didn't eat your spinach and she told you to eat your spinach? That's a ridiculous argument. No, says the defendant. Did you shoot your mother to death because she made you write down on a sheet of paper that you didn't eat your spinach? No. You wrote down on the list at the store Erik wanted to steal. That's what it says. Were you angry at your mother for trying to stop you from stealing when you were a child? Mr. Levin says, objection, Your Honor. Assumes facts, not an evidence. Court says overruled. Of course. The witness says, I wasn't angry at my mother for wanting to steal if I wanted to steal. It's just the punishment that would come as a result of these things that I would have to write down for my father. Have to write it down for his father so he could get the punishment. Is this a way of putting your mother on trial, Mr. Menendez? My mother is not on trial. You said that your father would call you names and would make you cry. Is that correct? Names would make me cry. Hearing things or seeing events inside the house would confuse me and scare me, and that made me cry. You said that your parents wrote you a card from Europe in which he referred to you as crying. Is that correct? Right? And you read the first sentence of that card, is that correct? Yes. And what he wrote to you in that card is, Dear Erik, I trust that you are not crying much. Europe will find Europe will find Europe you will find when you come here that it is still far behind America, in particular England. Well, be good to your mother. Love, Daddy. Is this the card that he wrote to you? I didn't read the last sentence, but I am sure you're reading it right. Yes. And does this sound like the words of an abusive and cruel father to you, Mr. Menendez? Objection calls for speculation. It's argumentative, sustained. I actually do kind of think it does. I don't think that it shows any anger or resentment on Erik's part. I think what it shows is that he is um what am I trying to say? He's kind of like backhandedly um insulting him. Like, "Dear Erik, I trust that you are not crying too much, my crybaby son of mine." It's like this is not a warm greeting from his father. It's like you better not be crying because I'm not there to make sure you're not. So this is your reminder to not cry. That's kind of my that I kind of see it like that. Like you better be good. And then he adds at the end, be good to your mother. Anyways, does this sound like the words of an abusive and cruel father to you, Mr. Menendez? Objection calls for speculation, argumentative, sustained. Now, were you told by your mother not to discuss things among relatives? Is that correct? Yes. And she told you not to discuss your bad grades. Is that correct? Yes. Your mother didn't want people to know how poorly you were doing in school. Is that correct? Mr. Levin says objection, calls for speculation. Court says rephrase the question. Was it your understanding that your mother told you not to tell people about your bad grades because she didn't want people to know that you were doing poorly in school? I was getting B's and C's, and she wanted them to think that I was getting A's. She wanted you to appear as if you were doing better than you were. Is that correct? Objection, calls for speculation, overruled. Right, says the witness. Mr. Khan asks, and did you find that unusual or odd that your mother would tell you not to tell people that you're not doing as well as she would want you to do? I didn't know what unusual or odd was. It was the world I knew. I had never lived in any other family. So you didn't find that unusual or odd, is that correct? Whoops. It became normal. And do you find that unusual or odd today? Mr. Levin says, Your Honor, objection. It's irrelevant. Overruled. Overruled. The witness says, I have learned a lot about raising children, and I am closer to my relatives, my aunts, and so on, and Miss Abramson in raising her child, and I think that it's probably best not to teach your child to lie. But when I was in my home, this was normal, and I wanted to keep the image and the secrets inside the house. Did she tell you not to talk about other things uh, other than your bad grades? I remember her saying things, yes, like what? My father and my mother would sit us down and tell us things that we weren't to discuss and not to discuss. Not to discuss. I remember the fact that she was tutoring me and training me to be better in school. She wanted me to keep my backpack in a certain corner uh, of my relative's home and zipper it up in a way so that I could tell if it had been disturbed. Just a lot of little things like that. She wanted you to lie, to not tell people that she was torturing you? Yes. And today you feel that it is wrong to lie about something like that? I'm not saying that my mother is a bad person for it. My mother isn't a bad person for that. You're asking me to feel, they're asking me, do I feel it's good to tell a child to lie? And I no longer believe that it is. Other than the bad grades and the fact that she was tutoring him, what did she ask you to lie about? I don't know. I can't remember anything specific that she asked me to lie about. It's just it was understood and it was explained to us in the family that The events inside the family remain inside the family. I understood that since I was a little boy that you simply don't go around talking about what happens inside the family. Well, what events was your mother trying to keep a secret, according to what you understood at the time when you would visit your relatives? Well, you weren't supposed to talk about anyone getting hit in the family. I wasn't supposed to talk about my mother's drinking. I wasn't supposed to talk about my tennis and how I was playing. I wasn't supposed to talk about the fact that I had stayed back in fifth grade. I wasn't supposed to talk about anything that might make the family look bad. I don't specifically remember her saying these things to me, but this is what was understood. Did you find it unusual that your mother did not want you to talk about things that would embarrass the family? No, I thought that it was normal. I did not want to talk about them anyway. And even today, isn't it your understanding today that many families don't want to have family members speak about negative things that embarrass the family member? Objection assumes facts, not an evidence, calls for speculation. Sustained. Mr. Khan for the state says, and this list that your mother would have you prepare to give to your father, did you feel that it was unusual at the time for a child to be held responsible for his father for not doing the things that his mother wanted him to do? I'm sorry. I blanked out on that question. Do you feel at the time that you would prepare these lists that is very unusual for a child to be held responsible for his father for anything? So they're just saying it's rare for a child to be held responsible. No, it's not. There's children that are charged as adults in this world all the time. And I think that's wrong. Um, I don't remember what the question was, so I guess I got to go back. Do you feel at any time that you would prepare these lists that it was very unusual for a child to be held responsible for his father or for things like that? He says, "No, it's not it's not that I would be held responsible. I didn't know whether the things on the list were true or not, but even assuming that they were true, I was afraid of the list because I knew there was the potential. I knew my father was one going to be angry, and I was either going to get slapped for he was going to go as far as to whip me, and that's why and that's why I was afraid of lists. It wasn't a matter of if I hadn't done something and my father was doing something else. It was a matter of either my mother getting beaten or me. It was going to be one of us, and so uh, so I was afraid of these lists. Are there any eyewitnesses who saw your father strike you after you presented him with such a list? I don't remember what he did to me after the list. I don't remember the list in particular. I'm walking about my list you ever handed. I am talking about any list you've ever handed to your father. Huh? Are these any eyewitnesses that saw your father hit you after you presented him with such a list? Answer: don't know if there I don't know if there are. Then he asks, you can't name one, correct? I know that Alan lived in the house. I know that Kathy lived in the house. I don't remember. I know that they saw and heard the belt. I don't know what they saw when I don't know what they saw that preceded it. So did they actually see the bell or the belt? I mean, excuse me. I feel like there's something in my throat. I can't ever clear it. So then you can't name one, correct? Right. Then you told us that sometimes your mother would make you go back into the swimming pool even when you wanted to get out of the swimming pool? No. It's that my father gave her a list of laps that I would have to do, or verbally told her laps that I would have to do. And if I quit before I finished those laps, she would tell my father. And that's what I was afraid of. And I would, I would want to get out of the pool because normally it was cold. And she would tell me I would have to get back in. What? You'd have to get back in. And what does that have to do with why you shot her to death on August the 20th? Mr. Levin says objection, assumes facts, not an evidence. Court says overruled. The witness says, I don't think it has. Oh, excuse me. I don't think it says any. Blah, blah, blah. Start over. The witness says, I don't think it has anything to do with it. The only thing that was, I have no idea. That's just one of the ways that my mother would tell my father things that I did or didn't do. I don't think that has anything to do with why she died. Well, why you killed her? Why I killed her. Now, did you say that your mother and father once took you for medical treatment after he sexually mistreated you? I don't think that I said that, no. He never took you for medical treatment after sexually mistreating you? You're referring to the medical treatment that talks about a bruise in my mouth, or I'm referring to your testimony concerning medical treatments that you received at some point in time. Court says, are you asking about testimony in this trial? Mr. Khan says, yes, Your Honor. I don't remember my father ever, the witness says, I don't remember my father ever taking me to see a doctor because I was hurt sexually by him. He would not have done that. Do you remember your mother taking you to remove medical treatment? I'm sorry, to receive medical treatment for any injury that you received from your father? What? Do you remember your mother taking you to receive medical treatment for any injury that you received from your father? I can't say precisely that it was related to an incident with my father. What are you referring to? The injury in my mouth. Are you saying that you once received an injury to your mouth and you were taken in for treatment? Is that correct? Yes. Who took you in for treatment? My mother. And was your mother the one who always took you in for medical treatment? Almost always. And you cannot attribute that treatment to an injury that you received from your father. Or can you? I can't honestly say that it is or isn't. I don't have a memory of it. It was an injury to the back of your throat. Is that correct? Right. And that could have been caused by falling and a popsicle stick hitting the back of your throat, correct? Objection calls for speculation. Sustained. Mr. Khan says, you have no idea how you received that injury to the nose or your throat. Is that correct? I don't. Are there no medical records that substantiate any of the allegations of sexual abuse that you have made in this court? Is that correct? Mr. Levin says, objection, Your Honor, calls for speculation. The court says, sustained. Mr. Khan says, are you aware of any medical records that document any of the mistreatment that you received at the hands of your parents? I am not aware of any. Now you say that your brother blah, blah. Sorry, I can't talk. Say that your brother, Lyle, stuttered, speaking of stuttering, when he was young. Is that correct? He did. He doesn't still stutter, does he? No, he went to training to get rid of it. Well, is that your testimony, Mr. Menendez? That when you were a child, you were an isolated child with no friends? No, I had friends at school. You were not a loner at school, were you? In fourth grade, what do you mean by a loner? Did you ever have any friends at school? I had friends that I would play kickball with at recess and so on. No friends that would come over to my house from school. But you spend nights at the homes of some of your friends? Objection, Vegas a time. Overruled. What time does it matter? Where was I? Sorry. I don't remember if I spent nights at Tommy's. I know that I spent at least one night over at Brendan's house. Now, you came to California in what year? 1986. And in 86, you were 16 years old. Is that correct? Yes. And when you came to California, you were not socially isolated, were you? I don't I didn't know anyone in California. I began to meet kids through school, sometimes from tennis. And you had a lot of friends in California, didn't you? Yes. And Craig Signorelli was one of your closest friends. Is that correct? He was one of my closer friends. Can you think of any friend that was closer to you than Craig Signorelli? No. You spent most of your time with your friend Craig? No, we didn't spend most of our time. He was a grade older than me than I was. So he had different classes but I would see him after school and play tennis with him. He was on our tennis team. And you spent a lot of your free time there with him. Is that correct? Yes. And you were popular among your friends, weren't you? What do you mean? In other words, you didn't have just a couple of isolated friends, that you had a good number of friends that you got along with well. Well, I was generally the new kid at school. I went to several different high schools, but because of my tennis abilities, I generally was ingratiated into the tennis team and became friends with whomever was on the tennis team. And you did the same at Beverly Hills High? Is that correct? Right. And you had a lot of friends at Beverly Hills High School, didn't you? At Beverly, I didn't try to get friends because I knew I was only going to be going there for a year, pretty much. Danny was my friend at Beverly. And in addition to having a car and a driver's license, you pretty much came and went as you pleased at home, didn't you? What do you mean? Well, did you have a curfew, a particular time of day that you had to be home? Yes, and it was awful. It was generally expected that I wasn't going to be home for dinner, but I certainly was going to report where I was and what I was doing to my mother so she could tell that to my father. And you would stay out late, wouldn't you? On school nights, I would be home before 6. Tennis team practice ended at 5. I would either be playing a match at, at home or work. I just totally lost my place. Hold on. At home or work. Hold on, hold on. All right, I don't know where I was and I cannot find it. So I'm just going to back up a little bit because I don't know where it was. Okay, so it says, or he asks, well, you didn't have a curfew. He says generally expected that I was going to be home for dinner. And could you stay out late? And you would stay out late, wouldn't you? On school nights, I would be home before 6. Practice ended at 5. I would either be playing a match at home or outside. But on school nights, I didn't come home late. And during the weekend, you stayed out late, didn't you? Sometimes I did. Just like many other 16, 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds, is that correct? Right. And you had a normal social life, wouldn't you say? No, I wouldn't call my life social or my social life normal. Why not? Because of what was happening with my father, it created a great sense of isolation. With my friends, Craig was my closest friend, but he had many secrets that he didn't tell me, and I had many secrets that I didn't tell him. And I think that's one of the reasons we got so close because I saw him as a little different, and he saw me as different. And so we had sort of a common bond in that way. And do girls and with girls, it was very difficult for me. Normally, the high school kids were out at a party getting drunk or doing this and that, and I wouldn't just call it different. I would just call it different. Now, you thought that the sexual assaults from your father were going to stop after you came to California, but you said it began again about November of 86. Is that right? Yes. How often did your father sexually assault you after you had your driver's license and a car? Generally once a month, sometimes not for a month. I know that it didn't happen in June, July, and August when I was dating Kirsten over the summer of 87. I know that it happened in November and December, and in January, and in February, and in March, and I didn't know if it happened in April. Do you remember the specific months that you remember? For example, it happened in March and not April. I know that it happened in March, at the end of March, because about a month after I started dating Kirsten, my father would come into my room and I called her and wanted to break up with her. I know that it happened in February because I know my father had actual sex with me a few weeks before I started dating Kristen. I know it happened in November because that's when it started up again and it happened in December. What happened in the March incident, he came down into my room and he had me give him oral sex. This is of 87? March of 86, 87. And you were 16 and a half at the time, is that correct? Right. And how tall were you when you were 16? 5'8", 5'9"? How tall were you by the time you were 18? 5'11", almost 6 feet. How much how much did you weigh for the time that you were 18? When I was 18? Yes. 150, 160, 160 probably. And when your father came into your room when you were 16 years old and told you to go down on your knees and give him sex, you would do it automatically. Did you complain against it? Only once. And other times you wouldn't do it automatically? Yes. How did that make you feel when you were 16 and he had a car in the driveway and a driver's license in your pocket? It made me feel very, very hollow. I don't know what the license or anything has to do with anything, but interesting question. It made me feel very hollow. It made me feel sometimes like an alien on the earth that this was happening to me. A lot of times it made me question who am I? Is my body mine? Sometimes I would want to hurt myself thinking that would hurt my dad. I was very confused and I was very confused in what I wanted and who I was. When you were 16, you didn't feel like a child any longer, did you? I wanted to be a man. And did you think perhaps I should just leave and tell my father no? I really didn't think I could get away with, uh, I, I could get away. Thoughts of me no longer waiting to live, or sorry, thoughts of me no longer wanting to live through my mind, but for some reason, even worse than wanting to live, not wanting to live anymore, was trying to run away. I just didn't think I could. And from the time that you were 16 until 18, then you didn't see the touch of your brother. Did I say touch? You didn't see that too much of your brother, Lyle. Is that correct? When I was 16 and we first moved out to California, Lyle was at Princeton. I know that he lived in the Beverly Hills house for many months. I would see him off and on, depending on what he was doing. Between the ages of, well, from the time that you moved to California in 86 up until the time that you shot your parents to death at the age of 18, how much or how often did you see your brother Lyle? I would speak to him on the phone. I wouldn't see him. Sometimes I wouldn't talk. I don't think I saw him for 8 months. The first time he was away. And you recall you were living at home all the time. Is that correct? Yes. And you knew that your brother Lyle was living in Princeton. Is that correct? Yes. And did you stop and consider the fact that if your father was willing to let your brother Lyle leave the family and live somewhere on the East Coast without him, that perhaps you could do the same? I thought that when I went away to college, I too would get away, but even my perception of Lyle was different. Lyle was always treated as the first son, and my dad's philosophy in Lyle was I was the throwaway son. Essentially, if something happened to Lyle, then I would be blamed. I would become the number one son. But I did have that expectation when I went to college that I could get away and that things would end. During this time period in March of 1987, when your father was making you do knee sex, did you think about getting in your car and driving to the East Coast and seeing your brother Lyle in Princeton and staying with him? No. Why not? I don't know. What would that do? You would be away from your father. Is that correct? My father would come to Princeton and find me, and that wouldn't help. And that wouldn't have solved anything. And you thought there was nowhere in the world to go that where you could get away from your father? I didn't. And when your father made you have regular sex with him it was February or 87 of 87 that that he made you do that? Yes. How did that make you feel? Made me hate myself. It made me hate him. It made me not want to live. It made me hope that he would die. It made me humiliated. And was that enough for you to make you walk out the door? I just wanted I just didn't believe that I could walk out. And you didn't ever try, did you? I tried when I was 12. After that, I wouldn't try. Mr. Menendez, isn't there a big difference between a 12-year-old and a 16-year-old? Certainly. Are y- and you appreciated that difference when you were 16 years old, didn't you? Intellectually, I did. Emotionally, I always remembered the incident, and it was as if I was standing on the edge of a 1,000-foot cliff, and you were telling me to jump, and don't worry, you're going to fly. And I'm saying, no, I'm going to fall 1,000 feet and die. And you're telling me, no, you can fly. And I just can't jump off the cliff. That's how I felt. For some reason, I could do it. And when you were 18 years old, did you appreciate the difference between between a 12-year-old and an 18-year-old? Of course. This guy goes after a 12-year-old. Interesting. When you were 17 years old committing presidential burglaries, did you appreciate um the difference between a 12-year-old and a 17-year-old? Mr. Levin says, objection, Your Honor, misstates the facts, and also the court says it's argumentative. Let's take our recess. We'll resume in 5 minutes. Well, I was going to end this video. In fact, I did end the video, but I wanted to get some more of the day recorded. So here we're going to go into a little bit more of testimony so that these episodes are a little bit longer because I know you have to wait a whole week for episodes. So I want to give you guys a little more of the content, but sometimes I just don't have the time. But I have a little bit of time here, so I'm going to continue reading where I just left off, but you guys were just there. Anyway, so they went for a recess, and now the court is back and says, okay, let's get the jury out, please. The jury enters the courtroom and the following proceedings are held. The court says the jurors are all back. We will continue with the cross-examination of the witness. Mr. Khan says, thank you. The court says the jurors are all back. Oh, sorry, I read that already. Mr. Khan says, thank you. Now, Mr. Menendez, after you turned 18 years of age, you had been driving for about 2 years. Is that correct? Right? Yes. When you shot your parents, you were almost 19. You were about 18 and 9 months. Is that correct of your age? Yes. So you continued to live with your family for about 9 months after you turned 18 years old and before you shot your parents. So he says, I graduated in June and I was going to go to college in September. Yes. After you were 18 years old, how often did you have sex with your father? After I was 18? Yes. I know what happened in February when I lost at the Fiesta Bowl in December, early January, in May. It happened in March after losing at the Easter Bowl. It happened at the championships when I lost in the first round. It happened when I was in the clay courts in Kentucky. And it may have happened one or two more times than that, but I just don't remember. Like, how's he supposed to remember all of the incidents? After you reached 18 years of age, how much longer did you think the sexual activities with your father was going to continue for? I was hoping it would end right after high school. Then I thought it would certainly end when I went and started at UCLA. Did your father tell you that he was going to let you go away to school? Yes. When did he tell you that? Well, I had thought that I was going to go to Brown. Brown was my number one choice. And then my father told me after a conversation he had had with the coach, that I would not be going to Brown. And so it was a matter of which UC school pretty much I was going to go to. I was accepted into Berkeley first, and my mother was very excited that I was accepted into Berkeley. She wanted me to go to Berkeley. My dad was happy that I was accepted into Berkeley, but told me that he was trying to get me into UCLA and pretty much assured me that I would be getting into UCLA. And you had no problem with going to UCLA? I would have preferred to go to Brown, but UCLA, I accepted the fact that I was going to go to UCLA. You were convinced that once you went to UCLA that the sexual abuse by your father was going to stop, is that correct? It was my fantasy that it would, my strong hope. How far away is UCLA from Elm Street? It's just a few miles. And you thought that your father, who told you that he would kill you if you left home, was going to stop sexually abusing you because you were a few miles away? What kind of a question is that? Because anyways, he says, no, this was a fantasy that I developed in the dream that I grasped onto when I started up again in California. And so I had it for years up to that point. In my mind, it didn't matter whether I went to UCLA or to Brown on the East Coast. Maybe I had built it up too much. I don't know. But I built it to the point where when I went to college, things would change. Well, it was more than a fantasy. It was a belief on your part, wasn't it? Yes. You believed that your father would no longer sexually molest you because you were a few miles away. Is that what you're saying? What kind of a question? Like you're accusing him, so you're admitting that the abuse was happening, or you're kind of saying that he's lying about it all? I don't understand. What kind of a question is that? Certainly, it's difficult for me to remember. At UCLA, I would have preferred not to go to UCLA. But once you found out that your father would prefer you in UCLA, you still thought that the sexual abuse was going to stop because you were a few miles away? Yes. And that made sense to you. It did in my world. And why in your world did that make so much sense? Did you think that your father, who had the power to chase you around the world, couldn't drive a few miles away and sexually assault you in UCLA? No, I think that it was a dream. It was a hope that I needed to have. And without it, I don't think that I would have lived until I was 18 years old. I don't think that I would have had the strength whenever I got so overwhelmingly depressed and I would lay in my bed at night and look up at the ceiling. I would think and dream about college. I think that had I not had that hope and that dream, I wouldn't have made it. And so maybe it wasn't built on rational or sense. Even though it made sense to me. It made sense in my world. But you agree, though, this is like harassing a victim. So you think it was just gonna stop? Like what? What kind of a question is that? But you agree, though, in light of what you're telling us about your father, is that it doesn't appear to be a very rational belief. Is that correct? Well, Mr. Levin says objection, it's argumentative. Overruled. The witness says no. I mean, yes and no. Clearly, it would make me much less available to my father. I didn't want to go home very much. Maybe I was going to go wash my clothes there, or I would eat dinner over there if my mom asked me to eat dinner there, but I would be less available to my father. But certainly, if my father had wanted to, he could have picked me up at my dorm, put me in the car, and drove me to the house. And yes, that could have happened. But that wasn't something that I wanted to think about. I wanted to accept my dream. But whether or not you wanted to think about it, Mr. Menendez, are you telling us that when you stopped and considered the fact that you were going to go to UCLA, you concluded in your mind that your father was no longer going to tell you to get down on your knees when you visited him on weekends from UCLA? Yes. And then how do you rationalize that in your mind? Did you feel that your father would no longer have this sexual interest in you? I don't know that it's a rational world that my father and I lived in. It was a world which he controlled, and it was a world in which I was constantly trying to adapt because I was confused and I didn't understand. And as a teenager, I wanted to be a man. I wasn't. I was a coward when it came to defending myself with him. But this was a dream that had I not had, I would not have lived to 18. And so it was a dream that I built up and needed. And when it was all shattered, all of my I was what I'm asking you, Mr. Menendez, is if your father was this all powerful man that you claim he was, that you could not go anywhere on the earth to get away from him, how could you maintain such a dream, knowing that you would only be a few miles away from him and presumably he would not just lose a sexual interest in you. Objection, argumentative, calls for speculation. Overruled. Of course, overruled. There's no doubt that he was this all-powerful man. He was the most powerful man I have ever met. And I don't know if I can explain it in a rational sense. It's something Mr. Khan says, you have no answer for that. Objection, Your Honor. The witness hasn't finished his answer. Let him finish his answer, says the court. You may finish. The witness says, "It was something I believed in, and my dad made it pretty clear on that Sunday that my dream was merely a fantasy, and that's what broke me." Mr. Khan says, "I'm not asking you about that Sunday. I'm asking you about before the Sunday when you were considering going to UCLA. What made you think your father would no longer sexually abuse you?" I don't know. He's already explained it that he would be less available. Now, you said that once you reached the age of 18, not only didn't you leave your home, but it didn't even occur to you to run away. Objection, argumentative, overruled. In any real sense, no, says the witness. What do you mean by in any real sense? When I was 17, I thought of it for just a brief time when I don't even remember the circumstances, but I was too overwhelmed, and I started packing my bags, and my mother came in my room and asked me where did I think I was going, and it sort of died there. I know that on Sunday night I tried to pack my bags and just said I'm going over to a friend's house for a few days, and I don't know if I really thought that I would be able to do that. I just I just felt dead inside at that point. I don't remember any other times when I thought about it just on the spur of the moment, but I didn't seriously give it any consideration that I could get away. Well, when you were being sexually assaulted by your father after performing on the clay courts, did it occur to you to leave home? No, it was just a matter of counting the days until I went to college. At that point, it was only a month and a half away. And when your father sexually assaulted you back in March of 1989, did it occur to you to leave home? It did not occur to me. Usually, when you're in that situation, you don't think of it, especially because they've already broken you down to that point where you're just like, this is my fate. I'm horrible enough to accept that I'm so horrible and this punishment is mine because that's what they make you think, abusers. They will make you think that you deserve it. They will make you think that you don't deserve love outside of this abusive relationship. They will make you think that you don't have options to get away. So it's not like you're going to be sitting there thinking it every single day. This is how I could get away. No, you just pretty much say, "This is my fate," and without that hope that he's trying to explain that the idea of going away to college was the only thing that was keeping him from not taking his own life because it was the only thing that he had hope in in regards to it stopping because being away from his dad not having access to him, living on campus somewhere, perfect. His dad's not there. He can avoid it. Well, he finds out that he can't. His abuser is going to continue to abuse him, and there's nothing he can do about it, is basically what he was told that weekend. And no, it didn't occur to him to leave. And you didn't even think about getting in your car and driving away, is that correct? What I interpret what you're saying is leave home permanently for good, never return, never make contact with my father or my mother ever again, and that did not occur to me. Well, did it occur to you to just drive away for a month and call up your father and tell your father, "I don't want you to sexually assault me anymore, and you're not going to see me unless you agree"? Did that occur to you? Yeah, because that always works with your abusers. What a freaking moron. It didn't, because it could never. That could never happen. My father would laugh. He'd say he would find me and it would be the end of that. That would could never happen. So as much as you hated the sexual abuse, it never occurred to you to drive away from your house, is that correct? And never return? To drive away from your home for as long as you felt you needed to, is that correct? Well, I think it did occur to me to drive, but it never occurred to me that it would be in any real sense that I would be running away. So it did occur to you to drive away for a period of time. Is that what you're telling us? I cannot say that it did. You're right. I cannot say that it did. I can't say that it didn't, but I definitely can tell you that I never gave it seriously entertained the possibility of never returning to my home. So which is it? Did it occur to you or didn't occur to you? Just what I said. It may have flashed through my mind. I want to get out of here. I've got to leave, but I never took any steps to follow through with it. Now, when you testified that you only had 4 free hours a week on direct examination and all the rest is was in accordance with a schedule that was made up by your father, you were talking about when you were young. You were not talking about when you were a teenager here in California, right? Right. And you had a lot of free time here in California, isn't that correct? I had considerably more free time than I ever had as a child, yes. And you spent a lot of free time mingling with your friends, correct? Yes, I did. Now, concerning your mother's use of alcohol, are you telling us that your mother was constantly drunk? No. Are you telling us that there was a time period in your mother's life when she drank too much? It increased as the years increased, as her depression increased. Over what period of time did your mother drink heavily? Heavily? Yes. She drank in Pennington and she drank in California. And during what period of time in California did she drink heavily? I don't know what period of time she drank heavily. I know she was very depressed, very wanting to take her own life. She drank a lot in 86 and 87. It was one of her ways to escape. But I wasn't around her when she was just constantly drinking. During those 2 years, she would go and do it in her bedroom or I would walk into the kitchen and she would be throwing things around. I know she constantly drank in Beverly Hills, but less so. Well, isn't it true that about the time you killed your mother was exercising and taking care of herself? She was in a much healthier state mentally in terms of her desires to live, and she was recovering from the tragedy that she saw her life in terms of my father having the affair. And I think 100% she was holding it over Jose's body after, or holding it over his head, I mean. When she found out about the affair, I think she decided that she had had enough. She's like, I've been putting up with your garbage, your abuse for this long and everything and whatever. I'm not going to deal with you cheating on me anymore. And if you see her anymore and if you don't act like a dutiful husband, then I'm going to turn you into the cops myself or something to that effect. I don't know. But I have a feeling Kitty probably threatened something along those lines about her sons and said she had proof, you know? I mean, all the photos that they took, all the uh, times that um, he was in the bedroom and no one was allowed to go down the hallway. Everyone in the house knows that, and anyone that stayed in that house, including cousins and various family members and friends, knew that. So it wasn't really a hidden secret. But in this family, the fact that it might get out, that was the worst thing in the world, apparently, to Jose. So she was holding it over his head, I think, because their relationship changed at this time. He became or they started being more affectionate with one another or showing affection, which they never did before. Something along those lines. I know there was testimony on that, and just that they were different. Their relationship changed at that point. They were nicer to one another. Or he was nicer to her, I should say. Like she could be a little more brazen with him, and he wouldn't really fight back against her. So I think that she was holding something over his head. So your mother was depressed when she first got to California because of the affair, correct? More than depressed, she was destroyed as a person. And she drank heavily during that time period, correct? Yes. And after a while, things got better between your mother and your father, correct? An arrangement was worked out between my mother and my father, and they became close again. Is that correct? I don't know what you mean by close. I don't think that my father loved my mother during that period of time, but my mother was deeply in love with my father. They were holding hands very often and appeared to have a very good relationship, didn't they? It was better. I didn't see my father hit my mother. It was better for my mother, absolutely. But they were constantly holding hands and things like that. And that letter about wanting to take her life that you referred to was a letter that was written shortly after your arrival in California. I'm not sure when it was written. That's when I found it. And during the time period immediately preceding her death, the marital problems that they appeared to be having were appeared to be somewhat resolved, weren't they? A lot of it is difficult to sort out, what I found out afterwards and what I knew before. But yes, it was clear that there was definitely no talk of divorce. She was no longer wanting to take her own life, and there was a stronger union between the two of them. That doesn't mean they were really, great, but could just be appearances and whatnot. And during 1989, your mother wasn't driving around drunk, was she? I don't know if I would go that far. She still drank but I don't it was less so than it had been in Pennington and in early California. Absolutely. In 1989, did you see her drunk in the presence of others? No, I don't think I did. There was no witnesses to your mother's drunkenness in 89, is that correct? Mr. Levin says, objection calls for speculation. Erik says, I know that people, objection sustained, the answer is stricken. Mr. Khan says, you were never present when your mother and a third person, you were never present in the company of your mother and a third person while your mother was drunk in 1989, were you? Well, certainly people saw her with drinks and alcohol. I don't remember ever seeing her to the point where she was out of control in front of other people in 89. You never saw your mother drinking excessively around other people in 1989, is that correct? Right. And your mother very much wanted to live when she was in 1989, didn't she? Yes, she did. Objection calls for speculation, says Mr. Levin. The court says overruled, the answer will stand. Of course. That you just, okay. Mr. Khan says, now, you say that your father held a knife to your throat when you were 17 years old. Is that correct? Yes. Did you conclude at the time that your father was a person who would kill you? I'd known pretty much all of my life that my father was a person who would kill me. Did you conclude at that time that your father would kill you just for refusing one of his demands, one of his sexual demands? I think of it more as a threat. I thought that he would kill me if I told anyone. And even after that's the next question. And even after your father held a knife to your throat and you believed that he was capable of killing you, you're telling us that you still didn't leave your home. Objection, it's argumentative. Sustained. You didn't leave your home after your father held a knife to your throat? He held a knife to my throat and said that he should kill me, but he wouldn't. And afterwards, it was just a matter of time before I went to college. What kept me going was that I was going to be going to college. He thought that he had an out. He thought he was getting out of this situation. One of the things that kept you going, Mr. Menendez, was the fact that you had all your needs met at your Beverly Hills home, didn't you? Objection vague and it's argumentative. Overruled. I don't know what you mean by needs, but what kept me going. Objection, Your Honor. The witness does not understand the question. All right, rephrase the question, please. Mr. Khan says, yes, let me mark some photographs. Well, I think they've been marked. Let me show you some photographs, which I think have all been identified as your room in this proceeding. Photograph 63, 62, 367, and 64. Are these photographs of your bedroom, Mr. Menendez? Yes, they are. Is that the way you normally kept your room? Um, it wasn't the cleanest place on earth. It was messy. It's really messy there. You had a maid that cleaned up after you, is that correct? I don't remember if she cleaned my room. I don't remember anymore if she did, but it was definitely messy in that picture. And in addition to having a maid to clean up your room, you had a mother who did your homework and filled out all of your applications. Is that correct? Objection assumes facts, not an evidence with respect to the maid. It's argumentative. Sustained. Sustained. Did your maid sometimes clean your room, Mr. Menendez? She may very well have. I don't specifically remember her doing it, but she may very well have cleaned my room. And your mother would do your homework. Is that correct? No, I'm not saying that I wouldn't do any of my homework, and my mother would just do all of my homework. There was a period of time between the age when I was in seventh and eighth grade and ninth grade where grades became the most important thing, and her involvement in my homework was much more extensive. And your mother would fill out your college applications for you. Is that correct? She filled out most of them, yes. Why is that? Did you ever volunteer to fill out your own college applications? She felt that she could do a better job and the better essay, the better chance of getting into college, and they were concerned whether or not I would be able to get into a reputable college. Wow. They couldn't even trust that he could do it himself. You were pampered by your parents. Isn't that true, Mr. Menendez? In terms of money, I had everything I needed. You were spoiled. Isn't that correct? Probably. They gave me all that I needed in terms of money. So much so that you couldn't even pick up your own clothes behind you. Is that true, Mr. Menendez? What, like every other 17-year-old boy? He couldn't pick up his own room? Yeah. Like every other 17-year-old boy that doesn't want to spend their time cleaning their bedrooms. Yeah. Yep. I don't think that's the gotcha that Mr. Khan thinks it is. Mr. Levin says, objection, Your Honor. It's argumentative. The court sustains it. Mr. Khan says, and she filled out your college essays for you. Is that correct? I remember working on one of them with Sally Jordan, a tutor that I had in Woodland Hills, but primarily she filled them out. Did you volunteer to write your own essays for your own college applications, Mr. Menendez? My mother wanted to write my essays, which was easier for me, so he didn't have to do it. Did you tell your mom, Mom, I can't do it myself. Give me a try, and if you don't like it, you can rewrite it? No. Why not? There were difficult essays to write, and I remember doing one at Sally Jordan's. It wasn't a good enough essay to send off to the college, and she helped me with that one, and from then on, she pretty much just did them herself. And I would either rewrite them or they would be typed and they'd be sent off. And your mother scheduled all of your sports tournaments, is that correct? Yes. And she filled out entry forms for your tournaments, is that correct? Yes. And she took you to the doctor when you were ill. Many times, but not when he was injured by something Jose did to them. Never instances like that. But when he was sick, sure. When it's not Jose's fault that he got sick. And she drove you around before you were able to drive yourself? Yes. And your mother pretty much gave up her career and her life to care for her children, didn't she? Objection calls for speculation, says Mr. Levin. The witness says that's what she told us that is what she did. My father gave her an ultimatum and she was forced to give up her career. The court says, did you? Mr. Levin says, no, withdrawn. The witness says, for my brother and I. Give up her career for my brother and I. Mr. Khan says, that's not just something that she told you, that's something that she did. Is that correct? She sacrificed her life for her children. Get out of here. Objection. It calls for speculation. It's also argumentative. If Jose told her it's kids or home, that's not a decision she made for the kids. That's a decision that she was forced to make because Jose made her. The witness says it was sustained, says the court. Mr. Khan says, and your father, didn't he spend all of his free time with his sons? Mr. Levin says, objection calls for speculation. It's argumentative. The court says, overruled. The witness says, he would come home from trips to make sure that he was there on the weekends to train my brother and I. Mr. Khan says, and he spent a tremendous amount of his own time training you and your brother? Yes, because aside from his work, his sons appear to be the most important thing in his life, didn't they? Objection is argumentative and calls for speculation. Overruled. The witness says, I think even more. Well, certainly, aside from his work, my brother and myself were the most important thing, his image as well. We were certainly among the most important things in his life. But that was because they're part of his image. That's part of his legacy. It's his his progeny, you know? So that's why they were important to him, because they were a reflection of him and his virility and manlyhood and whatever. So Mr. Khan says, and you're saying that this man who regarded you as one of the most important things in his life was also abusing you, is that correct? He was. When it came to giving time and energy for his family, it's something that he gave willingly, is that correct? Objection calls for speculation, it's argumentative. Sustained. He attended your sports games, didn't he? He tried to attend all that he could. He wanted to make sure that he was there. And he provided coaches for you in all of your sports training? Yes. And he sent you to private schools? Yes. Now, you were shown a photograph of Vaseline in your bedroom. Do you recall that? Yes. And are you saying that you had no use for Vaseline other than for sexual purposes with your father? I know that's why the Vaseline was there in my bedroom. I don't remember ever using that Vaseline for anything else. Did any of your coaches ever discuss using Vaseline for your hands in connection with your tennis training? There was Vaseline. There was sometimes when I got a blister and there was cream and Band-Aids specifically for that purpose. Right now, no, I can't recollect anything. You don't recall any discussion of Vaseline for your hands? There might have been. I don't. Now, in your first trial, you testified that your mother tried to poison the family at times, didn't you? Objection, Your Honor, it's beyond the scope of direct. Overruled. The witness says she talked about that when she was drunk or very angry, and she would say, I'm going to poison you all, or when she was angry at life, she would say that. Well, weren't there also attempts by your mother to poison the family? Objection, Your Honor. Request to approach. Request is denied. I hate this judge. The witness says, there were times when my father was suspicious of her and would not eat the food that she served. That's true. So, is there a reason why you left that out of your testimony this time, Mr. Menendez? Objection calls for speculation. It's also irrelevant. It has nothing to. That's Mr. Levin's decision of whether that should come in or not, and that's strategy, and you can't ask questions like that. Sustain. Mr. Menendez, you're saying that you believe your mother was going to kill you on August the 20th of 1989. Is that correct? Yes. And do you think that the fact that your mother had previously tried to poison the family is something that has a bearing upon your belief on August the 20th of 1989? Objection, it's irrelevant and misstates the testimony. The court says you're asking what he believes right now? Mr. Khan says yes. Overruled. The witness says I never saw my mother, certainly never ate any food that my mother tried to poison the family. It was something that she said, something that my father was suspicious of, but the worries of her poisoning the food were just when she was angry and just when she was angry at life. Oh, okay. It was just you can only worry about it when she was angry. Oh, okay. Well, it seems like she was angry all the time in that house. And it certainly wasn't the reason why I was afraid of her on August 20th. Are you saying that you didn't believe that your mother ever tried to poison the family? It crossed my mind that she tried. I remember a time when my father wouldn't eat the food. It's difficult to say. It's hard to rationalize that she would. Weren't there times when you would refuse to eat the food because you were concerned that your mother had tried to poison the food? If she was very angry that day, if she had gotten drunk and was specifically angry at my father, I wouldn't eat the food. You just It was a very chaotic household, and my mother was often unstable, and I learned to be weary of certain times. Certainly if my dad wasn't going to eat the food, I wasn't. But my mother loved me, and I don't believe that she wanted to poison me to kill me. You believed that there were times in the Calabasas home when your mother was possibly poisoning the food, is that correct? I can't think of a specific instance in the Calabasas home. Well, do you recall being asked at the first trial about? Mr. Levin says, can we have a page and line designation and an opportunity to review it? Mr. Khan says, page 17144 and page 17145. What volume, counsel? Says Ms. Abramson. 103, says Mr. Gessler. Mr. Khan says 104. Mr. Levin says, it's not in this volume. 103, says Mr. Khan. Ms. Abramson says, what line? Mr. Levin says, Your Honor, there's an objection to counsel referring to these two pages. They're not impeaching. There's no reference to anything. The court says, what lines did you refer to, Mr. Khan? Lines 28 on page 144, all of page 145, and line 3 on page 146. Mr. Levin says, we'd like to approach, Your Honor. The court says, let me see. Why don't you hand the transcript up to the court? Now, there's a pause in the proceeding, so I'm assuming this is it doesn't say sidebar, but let's pretend it's a sidebar, I guess. I don't know. The court says, well, specifically 17145. Oh, no, I guess there was a pause in the proceedings and now they're back on the record. So whatever the pause was, we didn't get to hear it. That's probably what happened. Specifically, 17145, line 23 through the following page, line 3 seems to be appropriate. Mr. Levin says, we'd like to be heard, Your Honor. The court says, okay, we'll have a brief discussion in the back here about things. The following proceedings were held outside the presence of the jury. So this is a short sidebar that we're going to have here. Mr. Levin says, the question was phrased in terms of Calabasas. There's nothing in here about Calabasas. There's nothing in the transcript that counsel wants to read that's impeaching or could be offered for any purpose. Court says, I didn't realize that was the nature of the objection. It was not focused on the Beverly Hills house. Mr. Levin says, and also counsel is obviously attempting to get into the Tracy Baker issue, which we have voiced our objections to before, and that's specifically why we avoided this on direct examination. So he should not be allowed to open it up and get into the Tracy Baker issue. The court says he certainly can bring out the testimony from the first trial that the defendant said that Ms. Baker was there, if that's what he said. As far as the impact of that Baker incident, that would only come out through some other witness and some other occasion, not through the testimony of this witness to the relationship of that letter that we've discussed in other hearings. That won't come out through this witness, but, I'm sorry, dog's changing positions. Okay, that's better. Where was I? Sorry. Not through the testimony of this witness to the relationship of that letter that we've discussed in other hearings. That won't come out through this witness, but he could certainly lay a foundation if it develops later on in proceedings that becomes admissible. Then the fact that the defendants testified about the incident on a prior occasion and then during this proceeding, it would be relevant. Ms. Abramson says he's setting it up. The court says he's allowed to do that. He can call your client later on and do it. So he can do it now. Mr. Levin says, but he can't refer to the Tracy Baker. Not the letter, says the court. Mr. Levin says there's still an objection that this does not, the court says, I agree, it does not relate to the Beverly Hills home. Calabasas, says Ms. Abramson. Mr. Levin says Calabasas. The following proceedings were resumed in court. Can you pick a spot and lay there? He has to he changes his positions about 5 or 6 times before he finds the right position to lay in on my lap. Okay. Now we're back in front of the jury. So, yeah. So cross-examination resumes. Court says, all right, everyone's back. We'll resume on cross-examination. Mr. Levin says, could I have a ruling on the objection, Your Honor? Yes, as it relates to Calabasas, the objection is sustained. Mr. Khan says, Mr. Menendez, in the Beverly Hills home, were there times when your father would refuse to eat the food prepared by your mother and push it away from him? Yes. How many occasions did this happen? I remember specifically it happening once. I can't remember at this time if it happened more than that. Well, do you recall previously testifying that the one time that you testified to it happening in the first trial was not the only time that that sort of thing happened where your dad pushed away the food and left? Right. Is that correct? Yeah. So are you saying that in the first trial you remembered that happening more than once, whereas in this trial you only remember it happening once? No, I objection that misstates as a testimony. Overruled. The witness says, I remember a specific time when it happened. I know that it happened other times, just not clear enough to my memory where I felt comfortable testifying to it. Mr. Khan says, and were there times at the Beverly Hills home when your father wasn't around and you would eat your mother's cooking? Of course. And were there times when your father wasn't around when you would refuse to eat your mother's cooking? Sometimes, if my mother was angry at my father earlier in the day or was either heavily medicated or drunk and was said something that made me wonder, I just would not want to eat the food in the house. And you're saying that sometimes your mother would say that she was going to poison the family, is that correct? Yes. And sometimes it was just your belief based upon what was going on that particular day that you decided that she might be poisoning the family. And so you decided not to eat the food. Is that correct? Making it seem like he's crazy or something. Well, once you hear your mother say that a couple times, it doesn't need to be heard a third time. If I just think that she's in a strange mood, I just wouldn't eat the food. Exactly. Once you hear your mother threaten to poison you, you don't need to be told more than once or twice. And you're going to have an irrational fear of cooking. Although maybe it's not so irrational then if she told you that. So, and you didn't eat it because you were concerned that your mother was in fact poisoning the family? Yes. And you didn't testify to that in this trial. Is that correct? Objection. It's irrelevant. The witness says there are different reasons for that. Objection sustained. The answer stricken. Mr. Khan says, now, when your mother would speak about poisoning the family, what would she say? She would say, I can poison you all. I don't need you all. I hope you all die. She told me many times in my life that she wished I'd never been born, that my birth was an accident and that it was a mistake. She would rant and rave and say these types of things. Generally, when she was angry at my father, she would specifically talk about poisoning. Now, is it true that your father would sometimes taste the food for the family and you would wait to see if he said the food was okay? Or he would taste where I would let my father eat the food first, yes. So you would intentionally wait and let your father eat the food to see if your mother had poisoned the food? Basically, I think that is being blown out of proportion. That wasn't a real concern every day. This was only because my mom sometimes was acting weird or acting strange, and if my dad was suspicious of the food, then certainly I wasn't going to take any chances. He knew my mother better than I did, and sometimes I would watch him eat the food and well, who's blowing it out of proportion, Mr. Menendez? I'm not saying that anyone's blowing it out of proportion. I'm saying that I don't mean to blow it out of proportion, is what I'm saying. Well, you testified to this in the first trial, didn't you? Yes, I did. Okay, and did you feel that your father, who was abusing you and had held a knife to your throat, was a trustworthy person to taste the food while you sit and watched to see if it was poisoned? What do you mean by abuse? Didn't your father abuse you? I'm asking what you mean by the definition. Did your father sexually abuse you? Yes. And physically abuse you? Yes. And then he would taste the food sometimes to see if it was poisoned and you would rely upon his representation. Is that what you're telling us? Pretty much. Did you feel that you could trust him? He would eat it, yes. Well, you didn't know what he had on his plate was the same that you had on your plate, did you? Generally, what was served, it was put in a dish and you took your helping out of a dish. And would you, so like a one pan something or other, and you would just scoop it and put it in your put it on your plate. Would you just wait for him to taste one bite of one item on the table, or would you wait to see if he tasted everything on the table? If my mother had made such a comment earlier in the day and he was sitting down to eat and it was okay to eat, but would you wait for him to taste all of the items on the table or just one? I don't even know if I would necessarily always wait to see if I tasted an item, just if he generally sat down to eat. Then everything was safe basically. This is an irrational fear because of the probably PTSD he has of his hearing his mother threaten to poison the family so many times that he probably i- i- it's irrational that yes, this person who abuses you is still your father and you still want like their support and you still think of them as your father and love them and whatever. Like it's a complicated relationship. So this attorney is trying to like minimize all of that. Like, well, if you really thought your father was so horrible, why would you trust him to eat the food then? Well, it none of it makes sense and he's telling you it doesn't make sense, but it made sense to him at the time when he was there. So, this whole line of questioning, I think, is pointless for anyone who knows anything about abuse. But if you're a juror who knows nothing about abuse and this is all you're hearing, you might lean towards the prosecution slightly. And it's frustrating because he's just minimizing his experiences of abuse and re-victimizing him on the stand. Would you wait for him to taste all of the items on the table or just one? I don't even know if I would necessarily always wait to see if I tasted an item, just if he generally sat down to eat, then everything was safe basically. And this would only happen if my mother was saying these things, these type of things, or if him and my mother were screaming at each other earlier in the day and she had made such a statement. But it didn't happen often. Are you saying that you truly believed that if your mother said something during the day, perhaps she was poisoning the family or the food that night, but on days when she didn't say something during the day, that the food was then safe to eat? Sometimes, if she didn't say anything, you still wondered. It was a strange situation, and my mother acted very strangely at times and was very mysterious, and I didn't know a lot of things about her, and this is one of the things that I didn't completely trust, but it's not something that was a present thing in my mind. I didn't believe my mother wanted to kill me. But didn't you testify in the first trial that you were sometimes concerned about the food and you wouldn't eat it for that reason? Is that correct? Right. And the reason you didn't eat it was because you felt your mother was sometimes perhaps poisoning you. Isn't that correct? Well, she was after she would say it. Yes. And did you feel that if she was angry enough to say it one day, it was unsafe to eat the food, but then the next day it was safe to eat the food just because she wasn't saying it that day? Objection, it's argumentative. Overruled. It can all come in. I'm the judge of just let everything come in when it comes to objections by the state. Let it all in, or by the defense, I mean. The witness says, essentially, you're right. Mr. Khan says, and how often did your father say something to the effect of the food's no good, don't eat it? I remember one time in particular, but it was not the first time that it had happened. Did you ever say to your father, in light of the fact that you concluded that your mother was trying to poison us the other day, why are we eating the food tonight? Objection, it's vague. The witness says, no, the court says, wait, overruled, go ahead. It sounds very strange when you put it that way. The household wasn't run in a systemic way where you knew this day my mother was going to poison the food and this day she wasn't. It would happen very rarely, and my mother would make these types of statements, and you would wonder, and then you'd say, oh, I must be crazy. Obviously, my mother's not going to do that. But if my father was weary about eating the food, then clearly I was not going to. But knowing my mother, this was not something that was out there. It was something that was possible. Mr. Menendez, are you saying this sounds strange because of the way I put it, or because it sounds strange because it's strange, no matter how you put it? Objection is argumentative. Overruled? That's absolutely an argumentative question. The witness says, I'm saying it sounds strange because it's been 6 years since I have been with my parents, and I have a very much better sense of what normal is, and it sounds strange even to me here in this courtroom. But these are simply the way it was in my household, in an abusive household like the Menendez family's house. Now, one time it happened there was a person who was present, is that correct? Yes. A witness, right? By the name of Tracy Baker. Yes. Who is Tracy Baker? She was a friend of my brother's. And did Tracy Baker visit you in jail from time to time? I don't know if Tracy Baker ever visited me in jail. You don't recall Tracy visiting you in jail? No, I don't. If she did, she may have only done it once. I don't have a recollection of her doing so. She may have done it once. I don't remember her doing it at all. Did you ever talk to Tracy Baker on the telephone since you've been in custody or exchange any correspondence with her? Objection, Your Honor. The witness says, I never exchanged, overruled, correspondence. She wasn't my friend, she was my brother's. And tell us what happened on the occasion that Tracy Baker was at your home. My father, after sitting down to eat, pushed his meal away and asked my mom something and said, what did you do to this food? Or I'm not eating this food, and stood up and said, let's go. And we left and we ate at a different restaurant. And after your father said something to the effects of that, of what did you do to the food, did he give you an order to go outside and wait for him? I think so. I'm no longer sure. Did you go outside and wait for him in the car? I know that we got into the car and we left. And you're referring to you and your brother Lyle Menendez, your father, and Tracy Baker. Is that correct? Yes, my mother stayed behind inside the house. And at that time, while you were in the car, did you say to your father, do you think she tried something on purpose? I don't remember. Did you say something to the effect of, what's the matter, Dad? You think she tried something? Did I say that? Yes. I don't remember that. Did you hear your brother Lyle Menendez have such a conversation with your father? I think I was saying that amongst my brother. What do you think's going on, or something of that sort? My brother may very well have said that to my father. Do you recall your father saying something to the effect of, I don't know, but I don't trust her today? That's what my father generally would say. What did he say on that occasion? I don't have a very good memory of it. On how many occasions did you hear him say, I don't know, but I don't trust her today? Just the speech my dad would use. He was very short, to the point, and almost to the point of being curt, and that's just what he would say. I'm referring to that specific phrase, I don't know, but I don't trust her today. You're saying that he used that specific phrase, that was something that he would generally say? That was his manner of speaking, is what I'm trying to say. Did you go to eat at the Hamburger Hamlet? Yes. And was there any discussion at the restaurant about what had happened? It's not the kind of thing where I would bring up a discussion to my father. When my father was around, he assumed control of the conversations, and it was very intimidating pressure. And I wouldn't just bring up a conversation, hey, Dad, what do you think's going on with Mom? It's not what I would have done. And this incident truly happened. Yes, it did. So he's trying to make it seem like you're just a big fat liar. Now, did you ever discuss this incident with your brother Lyle Menendez? Objection, calls for hearsay. Overruled. What do you mean? Did you ever have occasion to, in all the times that you had to talk to your brother over the past 6 years, did you ever have a discussion with your brother concerning this incident in which Tracy Baker came to your home for dinner? I don't specifically remember. I don't remember a specific conversation about this. Did you ever have any discussions with your brother concerning a letter pertaining to Tracy Baker? Objection, Your Honor. Asked to approach. Overruled. No, I did not have any discussion about that. They were not supposed to bring up the letter, but the judge is just like, sure, let it in. This judge is something else. Mr. Khan says, until this day, you still have never discussed that incident with your brother Lyle Menendez. Is that correct? No, I think that we've discussed it since the first trial. So you have discussed it since the first trial? I'm sure that we have. We discussed many things. I don't specifically recall what was said about it, but I can't say that we didn't. So you don't recall the context in which you discussed the Tracy Baker incident with your brother Lyle? No, I don't. Wasn't the Tracy Baker incident a matter of some concern to you in the first trial? Objection. Objection with reference, Mr. Gessler says objection, and then Mr. Levin says objection with reference to this incident as the Tracy Baker incident. The witness says, no, it wasn't. The court says, all right, the objection is overruled. The answer will stand. Mr. Levin says, I didn't hear the answer. The court says, no. Mr. Khan says, did you feel that by the time your father was discussing the issue of your mother poisoning the family in Beverly Hills, that your mother was capable of doing anything to the family? I certainly believed that she was capable of doing something to the family. Yes. Now, this was after your mother had purchased a rifle, is that correct? Right, which was in the fall of 1988. The fall of 88 was when she purchased the rifle? No, the fall of 88 is when Tracy Baker was over at the house and that incident happened. She purchased the rifle in the summer. Okay, when she purchased that rifle, she said that she was going to kill someone. Is that what you said? Yes. Now, were you concerned that she might use this rifle against the family? My father. Well, you were also concerned at times that your mother was perhaps poisoning your food, is that correct? Right. Okay, now your father was a very smart man, wasn't he? He was brilliant. And are you saying that during the same period of time in which your mother was apparently trying to poison the family, that your father allowed your mother to keep a rifle in the bedroom? I think it's a mischaracterization to say that my mother was trying to poison the family, almost suggesting that she was unable to and failed many times. I don't think that she seriously ever tried. I think that it's inconsequential and I never gave it much thought. I know my mother loved me and I did not believe that my mother wanted to kill me in the summer of 88. Certainly never suspected that she would use the rifle against me, never crossed my mind that she would use the rifle against me. So, up until the crimes, he never thought that his mother would turn on him. Let me go through each of those statements with you one by one. You said first, you don't think that your mother ever tried to seriously poison the family. Is that correct? Did you say that? I think I said that. Yes. What was all the food tasting about? It was about my mother acting strangely at times and saying strange things, which you had no choice but to take her seriously because she was very strange at times but it was hard to believe. You were concerned not only about what your mother was saying, you were concerned about the actual food that was being put on your table, and that's the reason why you refused to eat at times. Is that correct? If my father wasn't going to eat the food, I wasn't going to eat the food. Even when your father wasn't around, you told us there were times when you refused to eat the food. Is that correct? There were times I went out and I just got fast food and stuff. And that was because you were concerned that your mother was trying to do what to you? I was concerned that she might have tried to poison the food. Okay. 1 minute ago, you told us, I don't think she seriously ever tried to poison us. How do you reconcile the two statements, Mr. Menendez? Because when I look back on it, at the time, I took my mother seriously and this type of thing. It was a serious thing. But it's hard to imagine looking back on it from outside the bubble that she was going to just kill me by poisoning me. So you're saying that now in retrospect, if I would have isolated it. Objection, Your Honor. Overruled. That I couldn't do. What? So you're saying now, in retrospect, you don't take it seriously, although at the time you took it seriously. Is that what you're saying, telling us? Basically, yes. And you're saying that the next thing that you said was that it's inconsequential. Why are you calling this inconsequential, Mr. Menendez? Because I thought that it was slightly blown out of, not blown out of proportion, but it was I thought it was slightly blown out of proportion before, and I didn't believe that my mother wanted me dead, is what I'm trying to say. She wasn't just going to poison me because she was angry at me, at my father. When she bought the rifle, I didn't believe that she was going to use it against me. You said that it was blown out of proportion. Who blew it out of proportion? I think that in talking about it, it can't help but be blown out of proportion. I'm not saying that anyone tried to blow it out of proportion. I don't think they are. I'm certainly not. But just in saying it, it sounds unbelievable. Objection, Your Honor. The witness would should be allowed to give his own answer. The court says yes. Why don't you finish your answer? The witness says it sounds incredible. It's just like looking back and saying, I thought my mother had magic powers, and that's a strange thing to say. And I didn't realize she was tapping my phone and she knew things that she couldn't. That, along with the fact that she said she was going to poison the family and the fact that she would do strange things in front of me, it just made the world that I lived in at my home very weird. But at the time, it seemed very normal. I mean, that was his normal. Sorry, bud. Stop hitting the mic. Sorry, my mic's slipping anyways. Hold on, let me adjust. All right, that's better. Yeah, so this was his normal, was not knowing whether or not his mom was going to poison him, or whether or not his dad was coming into his room, or whether or not he was going to get yelled at for something that he didn't do wrong. So it was always a, a tense situation, I guess, if you want to call it that. I mean, someone living in that is going to be full of anxiety and depression and not understand how to cope in that situation, especially at a young age like that. Mr. Khan says, do you have any expectations as to whether Tracy Baker is going to be a witness for the defense? I don't. Objection, says Mr. Levin. The court says objection sustained. The answer is stricken. Mr. Khan says, when you say it was blown out of proportion, when did you say it was blown out of proportion? When was it blown out of proportion? Just talking about it. I told Mr. Levin before he put me on the stand that it was, and that it is, and it's just something he decided not to bring out. So he's saying that it was made more of a big deal in the first trial than it really was in his everyday life, or maybe it wasn't as traumatizing as you would think it would be. Although I would think that would be traumatizing to be told by your mother she's going to poison you. And is that because you felt, in your own words, as you used here today, that it's one of the more incredible aspects of your story? Objection with respect to the story. The witness says, no, it happened. It's true. These things definitely did happen. My mother said these things. She said things like that. It's not untrue. It just seems incredible. Is that what you're saying? Says Mr. Khan. Not that my mother would say these things, that my mother would actually try to poison me, and not my father, but me as well. Yes. Okay. Now, you next said that it never crossed your mind that your mother would use that rifle against you. Is that correct? Right. Now, I'm not talking about your state of mind now. I'm talking about going back to your state of mind, which you are saying existed back during this period of time when you felt that at that period of time your mother was trying to poison you. Why wouldn't she use the rifle against you if she was trying to poison you? Because I felt that she would use it against my dad. If she was trying to poison the family, if she was getting drunk, if there were days when she threatened to poison the family and you wouldn't eat the food because you felt that the food was poisoned, why didn't you think that on those occasions she might go upstairs to the bedroom, get the rifle, come down and shoot you? Because my mother would say these things in her wild state, and if you were at the house, you'd believe it too. She said these things and she was serious, and I just wasn't going to eat the food. I just wasn't going to do it. But I didn't believe that my mother was consciously trying to kill me. I didn't think she would. When she bought the rifle, it never crossed my mind that she wanted to use it against me when she said I wanted to kill someone. I felt that she would use it against the woman my dad had been having an affair with for 8 years, or maybe even against my father. But she was a very, very determined and strong woman, and she could do unusual things at times. Does anybody know if his uh his the woman that he had an affair with for those years, if she is still alive, or if she, if she lived past this time frame when she bought the gun? I think that's something that they should look into. I know she never testified in the first trial. Um, I don't know. I don't know if investigators tried to find her. I think her name was Louise because it was Kitty's middle name, which was Mary Louise Menendez. All right. So she was a very determined and strong woman, and she could do unusual things at times. Do you think that one of the unusual things she could have done was shoot you since she's in the state of mind capable of poisoning you? I thought that on August 20th that she would kill me. I'm talking about before August 20th. Before I found out, let me finish the question. Objection, Your Honor. He hasn't finished the question yet. Uh, the court says he hasn't finished the question yet. The witness says, I'm sorry. Mr. Khan says, before August 20th, I'm referring to the time period when you thought that she was perhaps poisoning you. Did you feel that a woman who was capable of poisoning you might also shoot you? No, I didn't think that. Why not? Objection, asked and answered, Your Honor, 3 times already. All right, one last time. What's your answer? Before I found out that my mother knew, before she told me that she knew about the sex between my father and me, no matter how angry my mom got, no matter what crazy things that she would say, no matter how strange she would be at times, she was not on my side, but I loved her tremendously and she loved me. And we had been through a lifetime together in trying to survive in a house with my father. And I saw her life as tragic. And I simply did not believe that my mother wanted me dead. I just didn't believe it. All right. Now, you thought that if she was going to use the rifle at all, she was going to use it against your father. Is that correct? Right. So, did you ever tell your father about the fact that when she purchased the rifle, she said she was going to shoot someone? No, I didn't. Were you concerned about his safety at all? I was concerned about my mother killing my father. I don't believe I would have expressed that concern to my father. Did you ever say to your father, or did you ever ask your father why, in light of the fact that she appears to be poisoning the family, he continues to allow her to have rifles in the bedroom? Objection, argumentative, and it also assumes facts not in evidence. Sustained. Well, did you know that there were rifles in your home? Yes. And you knew that your mother had purchased one of those rifles in the summer of 89. Is that correct? Summer of 88? Right. And it was in the fall of 88 when the Tracy Baker incident occurred. Is that correct? Objection to calling it the Tracy Baker incident, says Mr. Levin. The court says, well, we know what it's referring to, the dinner that's been described. Overruled. Mr. Khan says, did you ever ask your father why your father, a brilliant man, would allow your mother to keep rifles in the home? No. Objection, it's argumentative. Sustained to the form of the question, the answer stricken. Did you ever ask your father why there were rifles in the home? My father and I had no communication lines in which I could even approach him on such a subject. He was a very fearless man, and it just wasn't something that I felt I could nor would bring it up. Now, your mother at some point told you that you would have to get a girlfriend. Is that correct? She told me I had 6 months to get a girlfriend. When did she tell you that? In the fall, right after the fall of, I think it was 86, when we moved to California. And between the fall of 86 and the time that you shot your mother to death in August of 89, that 3-year period, how many girlfriends did you have? I dated Kirsten 2 separate times. There was a girl, Natasha, that I dated for a while. When you say that you dated Kirsten, are you saying that you went on 2 dates with her or dated her on 2 periods of time? I was in love with her. The question is, did you date her on 2 occasions or did you date her during 2 periods of time? I dated her during 2 periods of time. Did you feel that your mother was putting too much pressure on you to get a girlfriend? She was. She loved the fact that I was dating Kirsten. Before then, she was definitely actively wanting me to get a girlfriend. My father even said to me at one point, "You better find a girlfriend. This is important to your mother." And when did you finally break up with Kirsten? I ended the relationship right after the summer and then immediately wanted to get back together with her because of the pain of it. Yet I couldn't continue with it with my dad doing these things. The relationship with my father was too much at the same time. When did you finally break up with Kirsten? Summer of 1987. 87? Yes. And did you have a girlfriend between September 87 and August of 89? Over the next 2 years? Yes. Yes. Natasha? Yes. And how long did you go with her? About 3 months. Is that the only girlfriend that you had over that 2-year time period? I went out with Kirsten again a year later. How long did you go out with Kirsten? We went out a year. A year later, we got back together. She called me up and we got back together for about 6 months. Now, during this time period, when you weren't with Kirsten or Natasha, was your mother putting pressure on you to get a girlfriend? I don't know if putting pressure on me was the right word. She would see me with a girl or she would ask me about different girls. I know that she wanted me to have a girlfriend. She didn't put pressure on you. She didn't set a deadline like she did before. So you didn't feel any pressure to get a girlfriend. I felt that she wanted me to have a girlfriend. She wanted me to be with a girl. I didn't feel that I would be punished if I didn't have a girlfriend. Did your mother question your sexuality? Objection, Your Honor. Irrelevant. Overruled. Your Honor, asked to approach. Overruled. Wow. The witness says, after my relationship with Kirsten was over, she asked me if I wasn't man enough for her and am I just gay or something. She made those types of comments to me. Your mother suspected that you were homosexual? Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation and irrelevant. Sustained. Did your father question your sexuality? Mr. Levin says, Your Honor, objection with respect to that question. Overruled. I don't think that he directly questioned my sexuality in terms of asking me if I'm gay or straight. He called me a fag or faggot sometimes, as in other words, it was another word for a sissy. Mr. Khan says, How often did your father call you that? A lot of times. What was your attitude? What was your father's attitude towards homosexuals, Mr. Menendez? Objection calls for speculation, also irrelevant. Sustained, sustained. What was your father's attitude towards pornography, Mr. Menendez? I don't know what his attitude towards pornography was, really. I don't know. Officially, he was against it. And there are witnesses who can document, or there are witnesses who can verify that officially your father was strongly against pornography, wasn't he? Objection calls for hearsay, also speculation. The witness says, I think that sustained. Did you know whether your father took a stance against pornography? I knew that at home he had pornographic tapes and he viewed them in front of neighbors, but my father's official paid public stance was very clear against pornography. And where are those tapes today, Mr. Menendez? if what you say exists, I don't know where they are anymore. I've been in jail for 6 years. Did you destroy any pornography? I destroyed a box that he had in his bedroom. Did you feel that you could never live up to your father's expectations, Mr. Menendez? I felt that I would just get by. Did you feel that you were a disappointment to your father? I felt that he viewed me many times, for example, in Kalamazoo, uh, uh, when I didn't win the tournament, as a failure. He told me that I was a failure and that I wasn't worthy enough to be part of the family. Did he tell you you were not worthy enough to be part of the family when you were arrested for residential burglaries? No. He told me that I was stupid in the way I handled it and that we got ourselves caught by putting some things back. How much money do you think your father was worth, Mr. Menendez, at the time of his death? I had no idea. Didn't you think that he was worth millions? Certainly millions, but I had no idea how many. And you wanted to be a success, didn't you? I wanted to be a success in his eyes. It was one of the more important things in my life. You wanted to be a success in life, even apart from his eyes, didn't you? Well, certainly. And didn't you recognize that you lacked the drive and the ambition and the talent of your father? I didn't lack the drive. I had a great drive in the fields that I loved. I was not even comparable in intelligence, and I had a very different personality, have a very different personality than my father. Well, how do you feel that the only way you could become as strong as your father would be by killing him? Did you feel that the only way, what did I say? Did you feel that the only way that you could become as strong as him was by killing him? No. Did you hear the testimony of Carlos Peralt that your father was going to have a talk with your brother because they have to understand that they are not going to be that we are not going to be supporting them for the rest of their lives? I think you mean Brian Anderson. Carlos Peralt or Brian Anderson? Do you recall that? I recall that Brian said that. Yes. And did you ever have a talk with your father in which your father said to you that he was not going to be supporting you for the rest of your life? I remember there was a conversation after we got back from Kalamazoo in which my dad sat down with my brother to find out what was happening with the camcorder. And I believe my dad said that statement to Brian in regards to the camcorder that he was angry over. And that's when my father found out that my brother, had not, in fact, purchased it on my mom's Visa card. But in terms of him supporting us, he had just bought my brother basically $100,000 condominium, and my mother was going to furnish it with him. There was certainly never any discussion about support. Obviously, I wasn't going to be paying for my college, and Lyle wasn't going to be paying for Princeton. So, yeah, yeah, like they had their Lyle was getting in a condo in, and he also had a place in Jersey, didn't he? So if he needed, like, he didn't have to worry about money if he stayed good with his dad. So how does it have anything to do with greed? It still doesn't make any sense to me because their parents were still providing for them. They were giving them condos and furnishing them, and I'm sure they were taking care of their cars and college and all of the things. But yet the state wants you to believe that they took their parents out of greed for money and whatever. It makes no sense. So, did you ever find out what all this talk was about when your father was telling Brian Anderson that you and your brother have got to get the idea that he's not going to be supporting you for the rest of your lives? Objection with respect to anything with Mr. Anderson that was limited. The court says, well, at this point, why don't you rephrase the question as to what you mean by ever find out? Did you ever have a conversation with your father in which your father revealed to you in any way that he may have meant, what he may have meant by the phrase, they've got to understand that we are not going to be supporting them for the rest of their lives? I didn't completely understand. I can't imagine what my mother meant when he said that to my uncle Brian because I never really spent any money and I never had to talk with them with my father about spending money. I know that so I didn't really view it as a big deal. I know that he had a conversation with my brother when he got back home about the camcorder and why my brother bought it without asking him first. And it was explained and it was understood, but there were no talks about that. At some point, did you hear from your mother that your father was going to disown you? In May of 1989, my mother told me that she was going to disown you. Yes. And what did you understand that term to mean? I was very afraid of that term. I didn't believe for a second that my father was going to kick me out of the house, and so I was frightened by it. I'm sorry. I was frightened by it. Well, didn't you testify in the first trial that it was in May of 89 when you heard your mother say that your father was going to disown you, that you concluded back then that your father was going to kill you? Objection. Essentially, that's right. Your Honor, may we have a page and line designation, says Mr. Levin. The court says he answered the question. He said essentially that's right. Withdraw it, says Mr. Levin. Mr. Khan says, so you didn't believe during the week of August of 1989 that your father was going to. You didn't start believing during the week of August of 89 that your father was going to kill you. Now you're saying back in May of 89 you believed that your father was going to kill you. Is that correct? Objection. It's argumentative. No. What I'm saying, all right, says the court. Rephrase the question. Objection sustained. The answer stricken. When did you first start to believe that your father was going to kill you? I thought over my entire life that my father was capable and able to do it. I mean, I would have, I would be just training for tennis and running in the rain, and my father would be driving behind us, and then he would speed up the car and we'd have to sprint and sprint. And I knew that if I slipped, I'd get trampled by the car. Over my entire life, whether it be in sports or at home, I felt that my father would kill me. When my mother told me over the phone, your dad may disown you, Mr. Khan says, I'd object to the narrative. The question's been answered. Objection, non responsive, says Mr. Levin. The court says he's now focusing on the particular answer. You may continue your answer. The witness says, thank you, sir. When my mother told me that over the phone, I got frightened because my dad was never going to push me out of the house and say, go fend for yourself. That was an impossibility. So I did get scared, and I don't know if it's paranoia or I don't know if I really should have been afraid that he was going to kill me. Do you recognize the difference between someone being capable and able to kill you and someone actually going to kill you? Objection, it's argumentative, it's also vague. The witness says, yes, I think I understand what you're saying. Overruled. Capable versus going to in terms of intent? Yes. Mr. Khan says, so when did you conclude that when was the first time that you concluded had your father, that your father was going to kill you? On August 20th. But didn't you testify in the first trial that when your mother told you that your father was going to disown you, that you believed that that meant that your father was going to kill you? Yes. So then he was going to kill you back in the May of 89, not in August of 89, isn't that correct? Well, I had a fear that if I didn't shape up, this was going to happen. My father never said directly to me, you're disowned or I'm going to disown you. It was a certain circumvented thing through my mother in which I had the fear that this would happen, and I shaped up right away. So between May and August of 89, you felt that if you didn't shape up, not only was your father capable and able of killing you, but that in fact he was going to kill you. Is that correct? No. It was a fear that he would never throw me out of the house and that if he was in fact going to disown me, it could mean death. And that's what I was testifying to in the last trial. What did you do to shape up between May and August of 89 so that your father wouldn't kill you? Started informing him again of everything that I was doing in my day and going through an hour progression. I did well in the championships to qualify for nationals, and I just tried to generally satisfy him in every way I could. And the specific complaint that your mother had, which caused you, for what she said, your father might disown you back in May of 89, was your father's failure or your failure to tell your father what was going on in your tennis. Is that correct? Right. And so you concluded that when your mother told you in May of 89 that your father was going to disown you for not keeping him abreast of what was happening in your tennis, that your father was going to kill you for that. Well, it wasn't a fair jump in my mind. It made sense to me. If my father was going to go to the extreme of disowning me because I wasn't telling him every hour that I was playing tennis during the day, he wasn't going to be able to just disown me in terms of the way I viewed disowned was he was going to kick me out of the house. Well, the way I viewed it then is there's no way he's going to kick me out of the house. So what does it mean? I thought it meant death. So you're saying that in May of 89 you believed that if you didn't keep your father abreast of what was going on in your tennis career, your father was going to kill you. Only because of what my mother told me. But you did believe that, you're saying? Essentially, I felt that it was wise to keep my father informed of what I was doing in tennis every hour. Under penalty of death? Yes. Does the court wish to break now, Your Honor? Okay, we'll be in recess until tomorrow at 8:30. Don't discuss this matter with anyone. Don't form any final opinions about it. Don't look at any of the news coverage about the case, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. And that's it. So there you have it. That is the end of um, December 18th, 1995. We are still only part of the way through cross examination. So I have to actually go through and divide it up still and see. I only do like a couple at a time. I need to go through the next few pages or days, I guess, of our transcript and break it out. And then I'll give you guys in the next episode a rundown of maybe how many more episodes we'll have just of Erik alone. And then we still have a lot of trial to get through still. So I know we're only a couple months in. Trying to think. This is a 6-month trial, so I'm trying to think how far in we are, but I don't remember when it started. I think it started. Actually, why don't I look? Whoops. Hold on. So I'm looking at what we have coming up. We started back in October 1995. It would have been October 11th is when the trial started. We are now on going on to December 19th. Then they take a break for Christmas. They come back. They have basically a full January, a full February still, and then portions of March and April. So not March and April aren't full months. There's just a couple weeks. Um, like how many days is that? I think a lot of it is like jury questions when the jury's deliberating and stuff. So those are going to go quickly, for the most part, I think. But or they might read testimony back. We don't have to go through that either. And then there's a sentencing that we can read when we're all finished and all done. But that's it. So we are almost 3 months through we're almost halfway through, I guess, of the the whole trial. But you also have to figure that some of that's rebuttal, some of it is jury questions, deliberation, jury instructions, all of that stuff. So, um, yeah, we still have a little while to go. So, sorry to tell you, but that is what happens when you have a 6-month trial. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Please hit the like button, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye now. That's the end of this Trial Transcripts Exposed. Thanks for following along with me. Like if you want more, subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments below. See you next time.